We're a couple days from Christmas as we release this. I want to be the first to say Merry Christmas. Thank you guys for being with us on this journey for the smoke-filled room. At this moment, as you're watching this, I'm on vacation. My political team hopefully spending some time with family. We're recording this ahead of time. We've got a couple great episodes or great interviews and discussions that are going to follow this clip. So stick with us. Watch this episode. There's a lot of great information about 2024 and the future of Illinois with Don, Tracy, and Joe Sosnowski. So you don't want to miss it. But before that, I just want to have this chance with my political team. Merry Christmas to you guys. Any Christmas messages you guys want to share to our viewers, our watchers, our listeners?
Make sure that for the fireplace, you open it up so then you don't turn your house into a smoke-filled room this Christmas. That's all I have to say.
There's helpful advice. Look at that.
There we go.
If anyone else is the Christmas Grinch of their family like me, I have a Grinch onesie, I have sweatshirts, I have all the apparel you need. So reach out to me. You know where to find me. I got you covered.
My big question with that is, does the onesie at least have a little poop chute in the back? Because otherwise those onesies
No, it's a lot of work, and it makes you even grumpier than I was before I put it on.
It seems like a challenge.
He is a mean one.
I just say everybody have a Merry Christmas, eat a lot of great food, and we'll figure the rest out next week.
Michael,
what this week's all about.
What are you drinking for Christmas? I know you got something in front of you. What do you? There we go.
Busch Light, baby.
Busch Light.
That's Michael's Christmas drink of choice.
Amen.
You gonna leave that out for Santa this year? A Busch Light and some
and beef jerky, Zens.
Isn't that what you leave out for Kid Rock?
That's for the 4th of July.
Yeah, you're right.
Southern Santa is Kid Rock. You didn't know that?
Oh man!
But he is literate. He does know how to read. He does.
Look, it's been a very contested year in politics and world affairs, nationally, everything like that. But it's important every time around Christmas to remember what Christmas is all about. Christ is born, everybody. So everybody have a wonderful Christmas. Remember the good things in life. Take value for the things you have that other people might not have. And in addition to the cookies, leave out a pack of cigs for Santa and a can of Coke and a straw for the reindeer.
That's south side of Chicago Santa. That's where you leave the pack of cigs out for him.
That's the nicest thing I've ever heard Chris say. Like, I don't think I've ever heard anything
right over there.
He also gets us chocolates and cards every year for Christmas. Those chocolates are the best thing ever.
Chris is a sweetheart. People don't realize how much of a sweetheart Chris is. I think we got to out him one of these days.
I still have those chocolates.
I'm going to be eating 3 different batches. I'm going to be eating 3 different batches of snickerdoodles myself. So I'm very excited. Christmas is my favorite holiday of the year. So, and this will be the last Christmas before I'm a daddy, hopefully, if everything goes well over the next couple of months. So Abby and I are going to be celebrating and eating our snickerdoodles and our cinnamon rolls and our bacon and celebrating with family. So Merry Christmas to you all. Please enjoy this episode with these discussions. They're really great discussions that you won't get anywhere else. So stick with us, watch the episode, and we'll be back in your inboxes next week for another special episode of the Smoke-Filled Room.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Well, I've got a special guest with me, the Illinois Republican Party Chairman, Don Tracy. Don, thanks so much for joining me.
Glad to be here, Collin.
We're going to have a good discussion about where the Republican Party is headed and what 2024 is looking like. Where are there signs of optimism for the party in 2024? Before we do that, I think it's pretty well known that I've got JB Pritzker in my sights pretty much every week we do this show. So I've got to start with a Pritzker question for you, Don. When I watch Pritzker give a press conference, and every press conference, it's Republicans are this, Republicans are bad for that, blah, 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 Republican, Republican, Republican. Is this the most partisan governor we've ever had in Illinois history?
Well, certainly in my lifetime, which, I'm 73 now, so I've seen a few governors, and he sure seems to be the most partisan. And I don't know why that is. You can usually be more effective as a governor. The most effective governors, the most successful governors in Illinois have been less partisan. I mean, they've supported their party, but they've reached across the aisle to do big things for Illinois and for Illinois citizens. But I guess if you're running for president, if you're more interested in running for president than you are in being governor of your home state, then perhaps that's why he's so partisan. I mean, he wants to, and I assume that he's presenting himself now as the alternative to Biden if Biden drops out. Along with others that he will be competing with. And so he's trying to position himself to be the best person to pick up that mantle. I know has a national PAC on abortion. He was active in the Virginia elections, during the presidential Republican primary debate down in Miami. He was down there raising money for Biden and bracketing, as they say. So if that's your goal, to be the backup nominee for Democrat president, then I guess you have to be super partisan, and you have to do what he has done, and that is sign almost every, even woke legislation, leftist legislation, things like the Gun Safety Act. I mean, things that really truly are extreme compared to the norms of most states, and certainly the history of Illinois. So yes, to answer your question, he's super partisan, the most partisan. I mean, in Springfield, they don't negotiate. A lot of people think that they're upset with the Republican legislature because they're not negotiating good legislation, but have no leverage. With the Democrats controlling all the statewides, and the Republicans being in the super minority, there's no leverage. And in the past, that has occurred, but the other side with all the power. Recognizing in the long term, it's better for the state and for the citizenry, and maybe even for their party long term, to be bipartisan. But not Pritzker, and his leftist allies in the Illinois legislature. They have been super.
Well, and you make a really good point there that we've been talking about this since we started the show about half a year ago, where we've seen just in that half year, let alone over the last 4 years, that Pritzker and the Democrats in the state move further and further and further left, seemingly on a weekly or monthly basis. And to your point, it's clear that they've got ulterior motives, and Pritzker has his long-term ambitions, but it really is leaving the people of the state behind, because they really have gotten to the point where the Democratic Party in the state is incredibly far left and really not in the mainstream. If they ever were, they're certainly not today.
That's for sure, because they've been following the National Democrat Party, which has been going left, following Bernie Sanders and the Squad and people like that. And so the remedy is not to tell our legislators to negotiate better in Springfield, because elections have consequences. Yeah. The remedy is to elect more Republicans. And in the area of issues that the state's facing and the country's facing, the answer more clear, I think, than it ever has been to elect more Republicans. And toward that end, we've got to rebuild the Republican Party in Illinois. And I've been working on that for 2.5 years. And in my time as chairman, we have doubled our staff and we have doubled our fundraising. But it's a team sport. I can't do it by myself. Our staff can't do it by ourselves. We need help. And so we're trying to build, a bigger, better team.
Yeah, well, let's get into that. Let's talk about the work that's being done on the Republican side under you as chairman. First question I have is something we have seen as politicos for the last 3 or 4 cycles, which is that Republicans, we've been struggling with turnout on the Republican side and the conservative side, even with our grassroots base, that hard R turnout that you used to be able to just rely on to show up has been diminishing over time. And in this last election was the worst that we've seen, partially because we've really struggled to get Republicans and conservatives willing to vote early. What's being done to try to rectify that situation? Because if we don't improve our numbers, especially in vote by mail, if we don't improve our numbers, a lot of the rest of the stuff that we're doing may not even matter.
Yeah. Well, I would. I've heard others say who've studied the numbers that our Republican turnout was not as bad as some say it was for the last election. Our turnout's not the problem. The problem is vote by mail has dramatically increased the areas, and we have been a little slow to adjust to vote by mail and the advantages that it presents, preferring instead to, in the case of some people, not the Illinois Republican Party, not myself, but preferring in some cases to oppose it. But what we need, in rebuilding the party, we are adding capacities to the party that in the past we've not had, such as election integrity and such as get out the vote, also known as GOTV. In order to increase turnout through GOTV, we have, for the first time ever, hired a full-time year-round GOTV director. Just hired them last month. And the reason for that is because in the past, when we had Republican governors, and we had them for 26 years in a row, and we had president of the Senate, we had other statewide officers, Leslie Munger, comptroller, Dan Rutherford as treasurer, Judy Bart Topinka as comptroller. We've had lots of we had Jim Ryan was attorney general for a while. When you have statewide campaigns in the past, they provided the resources and the volunteers for Republican turnout. But and in those days, we had elections on one day. It was election day. Now we have election season. Early voting starts 40 days out, and then we count votes for 14 days later. So now we have an election season of 54 days. In the past, when those statewide campaigns that were well financed that came in, and usually incumbents, and that makes a huge difference in terms of turnout, and particularly in the days before Rutan eliminated patronage, so that Republican governors, they not only had the prestige and the resources of being incumbents statewide, but they also had patronage jobs that boosted turnout, and the volunteers that boosted turnout. And so in those days, turnout could be, maybe 60 days before the election, something like that. Start working on that. But now it's got to be year round, I think. And also, it's just more complicated with vote by mail, because, vote by mail, if you want people to vote early by mail, you need to start like 120 days out of the election. And that takes more and more preparation. So that's why GOTV now, to be successful, in my opinion, has to be a year-round effort. And that's why we now have our first ever year-round full-time GOTV director. And it's also why we have joined the Republican National Committee and the Bank Your Vote initiative, which is a national initiative. And that is and the purpose of that is to get Republicans that we know are going to vote, what we call high propensity voters, to vote early. Not often, as the Democrats might say, but we want all our good Republican voters that we know are going to vote early, because that saves us GOTV resources. Because if a Republican votes on, say, the first day of early day voting, either by mail or in person, then that means we can mark them off the list. We don't have to chase them. But if they don't vote first day, then we keep them on the list. We check that list. And if they haven't voted after a few days, then we might send them a text message. And if they haven't voted for a few days, maybe we'll send them a postcard. And if they still haven't voted, maybe we'll send somebody maybe we'll have somebody call them. And if they still haven't voted, then perhaps we'll have somebody knock on their door, and then so on and so forth, and maybe repeat some of those efforts. And we've estimated that if somebody votes first day, that may cost, in terms of campaigning, maybe $4 per vote. But if they don't vote until the very end, after all that chasing, then we're up to $20 a vote. And we would rather than spend that money on high propensity Republican voters who are going to vote anyway. If they just vote early, we call that banking your vote. And then we can use that savings, that $16 savings for all those votes, which they add up pretty fast. I mean, $16,000 right there. Then we can use those resources to chase the people that don't always vote, that have to be chased and have to be bugged and have to be, well, I don't want to use the word harassed. I can't think of a better word at the moment.
Sometimes it's what it takes.
Voting, because they're going to vote our way if they just take the time to vote. And so that's why Bank Your Vote is so important. But again, it takes resources. And when I was elected chairman, I didn't inherit an annual fundraiser for the Illinois Republican Party like a lot of states have. But we're trying to start one. We're doing it in Rosemont on February 9, and we call it your Bank Your Vote Gala. And John Kennedy, U.S. Senator from Louisiana, is our speaker. Very colorful and effective U.S. Senator. I think there'll be a big draw. We're already selling a lot of tables and sponsorships and ads, but we need to do more. And so we're really focused on that. Get the resources to really increase turnout next election.
Well, and you started talking about how you've increased the staff of the party, and you mentioned bringing on someone to focus on these efforts. And Murph is awesome. He's a great guy, but My question is, I mean, this is going to be labor intensive. You talk about those phone calls and all the work that's required. One person, no matter how good they are, is never going to be able to do that. What's the plan to get the resources, get the party at the grassroots level engaged in that effort? Because what you're talking about, to do it right, is going to be extremely labor intensive. And when done right, it could be hugely impactful. We've seen, and we've talked to people in other states like California, New York, where they've had tremendous success in these programs and flipping even blue seats. So when the resources are put into it, especially the time, it works. But one person obviously can't do it. So what's the plan there to make sure those man hours are available?
Well, you got to start somewhere, and so we started with the GOTV director. The purpose of in his job will be to direct our GOTV efforts on the state level, and to help decide where the resources are going to go, and come up with the overall plan, which we're working on the details of now. But also will be to help the local parties. A lot of GOTV is local. All politics are local, they say. And those door knockers, they're not working for the Illinois Republican Party. They're usually working for the county party or the township party. And some of the counties and some of the townships do a very good job with GOTV, and particularly with voting by mail. But some of them will need a lot of guidance. So our director will be there in a position to provide that type of guidance. But how big a program will we have? Well, and we'll be using outside resources for this. And we can last time we only had 250,000 for GLTV. So we, and if that's all we have, that's all we have. But if we have $5 million worth of resources, we can raise that much money through the Bank Your Vote Gala and other things. Then we can have a $5 million GOTV program, all dependent on resources.
Yeah, that's a great point. In terms of resources, we've seen a lot of improvement in the growth and the energy and the excitement from grassroots conservatives and Republicans. We're not quite where we need to be to win next year, but we've seen a lot of positive signs. How do we energize our grassroots as we go into the 24 election cycle? Obviously I work in politics. We do a lot of the air assault, the TV, the mail, the digital ads, and that's great. But elections are won and lost at the doorsteps and on the phones, and the grassroots activity. How do we make sure we have that grassroots activity going into this next election so we can get some big wins in 2024?
Yeah, I always wonder what people mean when they say grassroots. I mean, is that like Rhonda Belford, who's the president of the Republican County Chair Association, who's been knocking on doors since I think she was a little kid? For I don't want to say how old she is, but it's been several decades. I can tell you that, and I think she's handled about every position there is in politics. And I would think that would be grassroots. But other people say grassroots are people that are fairly new to politics, and they're just doing it for the first or the second time. But whatever the definition
here's what I would say. Anybody that's willing to make a phone call, send a text, or knock on a door to help elect Republicans, that's grassroots. I don't care if you've been involved for 5 minutes or 50 years.
I love that definition. That is great. Thank you, Collin. I think, may I adopt that definition?
Go ahead, go for it.
It makes a lot of sense. But we need all hands on deck if we're gonna win in Illinois. I mean, it was like 33% Republicans in Illinois, and I think 47% Democrats. So, and we need to persuade those persuadables in the swing voters, because that's how we win. And to do that takes many hands. Many hands make light labor. So we need all the volunteers that we can get out there. And what inspires grassroots, first of all, is the need to win. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that Democrats are trying to destroy our state. Things like the Unsafety Act and our country, with things like open borders and spending money on cradle to grave welfare instead of the national defense. There's just so many things wrong with where our state is going and where our country is going. That will energize the grassroots at every level. I would think should be enough, and then candidates. And we had a rough election in 2022. We didn't have the big red wave that a lot of people were hoping for, I think. Certainly we were all hoping for it. Whether it's realistic to expect it or not is, a discussion for another day. But you would think after a tough election, it'd be hard to recruit candidates. But there's some great candidates out there that should inspire people. Just one, for example, Judge Joe McGraw, up running in the 17th congressional district, is really a great candidate. But there's lots of great candidates and great incumbents. Lots of good reasons to get out there and support Republican politics, but mainly we got to keep people off the sidelines. Nationally, Collin, the Democrats give 3 times more money to Democrat parties and causes and candidates than they do to Republicans, and Republicans do to Republican causes and candidates. And is that because Democrats feel more strongly about their causes, or do they have more grassroots than Republicans do, or do they have more money than Republicans do? I don't think so. I'm not sure exactly why. I do think part of it is that because Democrats tend to feed off the government, and they're a special interest party now. And they have these very powerful special interests that provide a lot of the money, and their special interests feed off government as well. And Democrats, a lot of their wacky leftist, crazy socialistic policies, they're not supported by majority of the American people. So they have to get their way through the strong arm of government, and that makes them naturally more active in politics and more active in getting the judges in there who can change the law sometimes without Democratic votes and that sort of thing. So that's what we're fighting up against. And the best way to counter that is to get more Republicans off the sidelines. I grew up at a time in the last 70 years, we won World War II. The world was in ruins. Much of the world was in ruins. Much of the civilized world was in ruins, and we were on top of the heap. And as a result, we have not had to fight for a safe world, and that seems to be changing right now. And we have been blessed with great governance, really good governance that has been, to a large extent, on a bipartisan nature that we've taken for granted. And we have been a democratic society. But socialism is on the march throughout the world, and certainly in the United States. So we've got to get more good Republicans off the sidelines. Now, whether that means, volunteering, knocking on doors like we're talking about, helping with GOTV, if you have time, I think that's great. That's what we need. If you don't have time, but you have money, well, as I like to say, there's an easy way to help. Write a check, write several checks. You've got to get Republicans giving more and donating and volunteering more to turn this around. Politics is truly a team sport. It's not just me. It's not just you and your great team. It's not just the candidates and all their volunteers. We need to get more people off the sidelines. There's so much more to do. It's not a one person job.
Yeah. Well, and as you talk about it, we've got to do it together. I know we're going into primary season, and when this gets released around Christmas, there'll be 3 months going in the primary. So during the primary, we scrimmage against each other, and that's fine. That's part of the process. But after that primary, when we get into March 20th, all the way through Election Day, we know who the true enemy is. We know who we need to focus our efforts on, and that unity is going to be incredibly important, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You talked about finances. Let's just talk briefly. You've seen a lot of success through your hard work at raising funds, especially compared to, and no disrespect to previous chairman, but compared to the previous chairman we've had for a long time, you really have improved the fundraising apparatus of the state party. Even with that, there's a massive disparity between what Republicans in the state have available in terms of finances and what Democrats do with all their allies, as you've talked about. How do we compete with that? What are you doing to continue to increase those fundraising efforts? You mentioned the fundraiser coming up on February 9th, I believe. I know that's going to be big. What are those efforts as we go into next year to, number one, try to decrease that disparity, and then number two, make sure our dollars are going further so we can still win?
Yeah. Well, since I became chairman, we have doubled basically the fundraising of the party, which sounds like a lot, but we started with a pretty small base. So we're raising about $1 million to a year, $1 million to $1.2 million a year. But when I took over the party, we did not have a fundraising committee. The first thing I did was establish a fundraising committee chaired by Vince Colbert, and we meet every Tuesday at 3:00, and we rarely skip a meeting, except during holidays. And that committee has helped a great deal towards the success. As I said, I did not inherit an annual fundraiser like the gala that we're doing, so that we're doing that for the first time ever. But fundraising, it's a lot of work. If you're in a state like Illinois, which is kind of a pay-to-play state, and you're in the super minority. So we raise our money with $5 and $10, $15, $50 checks, $100 checks raised by sent in by grassroots people all over the state. You'd be amazed how many checks there are like that. And that's through our direct mail. We also have digital mail, and we get a lot of $5 and $10 and $15 checks through digital mail. And then for the larger checks, we have fundraisers. And the next one is December 1. It's at Wrigley Field in the 1914 Club. Senator Pete Ricketts, the former governor of Nebraska, now U.S. Senator from Nebraska, brother of Todd and Tom Ricketts, and son of Joe Ricketts, the owners of the Cubs. And he's a co-owner as well. He is our keynote speaker there at Wrigley Field on December 1 in the evening. I think it starts at 5:30. And that we did that fundraiser 2 years ago. It was great fun, one of our most successful fundraisers. So we're hoping for a good turnout at that event. Expect there will be. It's sort of also our holiday Christmas party. Also in Naples, there's one of the problems in Illinois is we have all these people.
Yep.
We've got a lot of people moving out of.
I was going to mention doing a December fundraiser at Wrigley Field, but now you're talking about warmer weather, so that makes sense.
Yeah, right. But a lot of Illinoisans are moving to better governed states and lower tax states, including Florida. And so there's a big contingent of Illinoisans down in Naples, Florida. So we're having a Naples fundraiser on January the 26th. And Carlos Jimenez, a congressman from Miami, who was the mayor of Miami-Dade, which is a big jurisdiction and a very, very articulate individual. He's going to be our keynote for that fundraiser in Naples on January the 26th. So we're trying to do fundraisers about every 2 months, and we get our some of our larger checks through the fundraisers. But big source of our funds are major donors, major sponsors, and campaign finance reform took a lot of the money out of state parties because you hear about $50 million campaigns, you hear about JB Pritzker putting in $300 million to be reelected as governor, so you think there's just all kinds of money floating around with parties. That money is outside the parties because we are limited to like $24,000 per individual. And like 27,000 per corporation. I think it's 60,000 per PAC. And whereas if you have a governor, if you have a statewide, wealthy politician like Pritzker can write $1 million, $2 million checks to the Party of Illinois. We were outraising them last year and the year before, and then Pritzker writes like a $2 million check to the Democrat Party or the special interest. I know my first year we were outraised the Democrats in the second quarter, the third quarter, and then the fourth quarter they got like 6 special interest checks from people who are doing business with the state of Illinois. So that's hard to compete with, but we are working it all the time. We've had a lot of good major sponsors, major donors out there. We need more. We need more people to get involved. And the thing about a lot of people don't realize about parties is that we don't, for the most part, we don't recruit candidates. If we have a hole in a ticket, we will. We might help the House Republicans recruit candidates if they need help, or the Senate. But that's the responsibility generally of other people. And plus, we have to be strictly neutral in the primary. So if we're out recruiting people to run in the primary, and there's other Republicans already running, well, that would be not a good thing. So we generally don't recruit candidates, and we don't manage campaigns. And we don't consult on campaigns, as I know you do. You help out campaigns. You're a fine organization, and we don't fund campaigns. Instead, we build political infrastructure like GOTV and election integrity. I'll talk about that in a minute if you'd like me to. But we are like the roads and bridges of the political ecosystem, if you say. And so that's what we focus on, and that's what we work on.
Got it. Well, and speaking of that, let's talk about our advantages. We've talked a little bit about the disadvantages we have in the state, but right now, one of our biggest advantages is every poll that I see, and I've got a polling company, so we see these polls across the country pretty regularly, and every poll that I see on the top major issues facing voters, on 8 of the top 10, Voters are with us. They're with Republicans to varying degrees, but on most of the issues, especially the top issues, voters are with us. And so while we might have a disadvantage with bodies or with the maps or with money, the good news is when it comes to the issues and the things that impact the lives, the daily lives of voters, we have an advantage in that our policies are more in that mainstream and voters are with us on more of our policies. And so I want to ask you, what do you see it's going to work for us on the issue level in 2024? What's going to be those issues that are going to really help us win in this next election?
Well, the Democrats have certainly overplayed their hand. They, with that, I guess you could say that might be the disadvantage of having all the statewide offices and being in the super majority is that you get cocky, you get arrogant, and you don't negotiate with the other side, and in the short and you dictate instead, and in the short run, you get your way with state legislation. But in the long run, if you overplay your hand and you get away from the majority, what the majority voters think, then you're going to start losing eventually at the ballot box. The Democrats have certainly overplayed their hand on crime and safety by supporting pro-criminal legislation like the Unsafety Act and pro-criminal prosecutors like Kim Foxx in Chicago and the gentleman in Lake County whose name
Eric Reinhardt at
the moment, and victims are paying the price of that. Carjacking victims are paying the price. Retail on the Magnificent Mile and elsewhere paying the price of it. Drugstores are paying the price. We now have food deserts and pharmaceutical drugstore deserts in certain parts of Chicagoland mainly because of crime. So they've overplayed that issue, and that is that's not so that certainly would suggest, and the solution there is to vote Republican. Of course, get Republicans in here. The Republicans oppose the Unsafety Act. I think all of the state's attorneys except for Gardner and Fox opposed the Unsafety Act. I think all the sheriffs, except for a couple, opposed it. So that should tell you something about how they overplayed their hand on what they call criminal reform, what we call as pro-criminal legislation. Then
you mentioned earlier immigration. I mean,
while
the migrant crisis and immigration aren't necessarily the same thing, it has opened people's eyes to this issue, and we're seeing immigration rise dramatically in the polls in terms of something that voters are worried about, and they give Republicans a huge advantage on that issue.
Actually, open borders, it's an economic ikke. It is a national security issue, and it is an issue that has come home to roost for the Democrats. And not just on the border states, but here in Illinois. Democrats, they've been, I guess, pleased with their open borders policy, I guess, because they think that eventually people that come into this country illegally, naturally, because they came in illegally, they tend to be Democrat, I guess that's their thinking. And so they've encouraged people, that through sanctuary cities and the open borders policy. But those pitches have come home to roost now in the form of the migrant crisis, certainly in Chicago and elsewhere in Chicagoland, and so much so that even Democrats are starting to complain about this unrestricted open border policy and the sanctuary city policy, because it's obvious they didn't plan for it either. They have migrants, living in tents now because they didn't plan. They have a sanctuary city,
soft-sided shelters. Right?
Yeah, they didn't plan for it. Then they decide, well, we're going to give free health care, other things, other benefits to migrants because we want migrants, more undocumented or illegal migrants, whatever, asylum seekers, whatever you want to call them, in Chicago. And then they find out, well, oops, it's going to cost more than they thought. So they back off from that. So it's chaos. It's a Democrat dysfunctional government at its finest, I think, and something where the Democrats have certainly overplayed their hand. Yeah. Another area they've overplayed their hands in the economy. They think, well, the solution to any kind of economic situation is just tax and spend more. I guess spend, borrow money, print the presses, and so that's why we have inflation. That's why the typical Thanksgiving dinner, I think, costs 18% more or so than when Joe Biden became president. So those are three big issues, but I didn't really get into the National Security Office. I mean, issue of the open borders. I mean, how many terrorists have come into our country? It only took 19 people to plan 9/11. How many? But there are thousands of young men of military age that have come in. getaways, illegally and through getaways, and through the catch and release program, or they just completely evaded the catch. And what are they doing? What are they plotting? What are they planning now? Have we been able to keep track of those? I would suggest not. So that I think
it's not necessarily national security, but it ties into safety as well. You look at the fentanyl that's just pouring across our borders, and that's a major part of the borders as well.
Absolutely. So they've overplayed their hands on those three big issues. We've got to take advantage of it to do so. That requires political infrastructure, and that's why since I became chairman, I've doubled our fundraising and I've doubled our staff and doubled our efforts overall. I had almost no active committees. Now, the training committee was the only active committee. We now have finance committee active, and we have the election integrity committee. We have our first ever year-round full-time election integrity director. Election integrity is an issue in Illinois. Something we're working very hard on through an active committee and a full-time election integrity director. We've got to start winning in the suburbs again. We used to lose. We've always lost in Chicago for years and years, but we won downstate, and we won in the suburbs. But now that we're losing in the suburbs, that's why we're out of power right now. We've got to win in the suburbs again. They say on a clear day, 70% of the voters in Illinois can see the Willis Tower, and so I'm focusing on that by convening meetings of the county chairs of all the collar counties and the Cook County chair to figure out how to win in the suburbs again. So that's another one of our focuses. And we've heard a lot of.
I've heard a lot of good things about those committee meetings and the intel that's being shared and the coordination that we haven't seen before. So kudos on that. I've heard a lot of great things about it.
We got a lot more people involved, at that level, at a high level. But we need more people involved. Yeah. More activity.
Well, I know you're limited on time, so let me go to the next issue here. We're talking about issues. With Pritzker, you mentioned his Think Big America, and he's all in on being the abortion governor and making Illinois the abortion capital of the world. Or at least of the Midwest, if not the country. Are they right? Is 2024 going to be a referendum on abortion? Is that going to be what they're able to ride to victory in 2024? Because that's all we hear from Pritzker, the Democrats, and the media is that it's all going to be about abortion, and Democrats are going to rule the day.
Yeah, it seems like they've almost become a single issue party. It's abortion. The first their plank is probably abortion first, second, and always. It's abortion. Let's promote abortion. But really, they're the extremists. The Democrat Party is the extremist on abortion, not Republicans. They try to portray us as the extremists, but that is just misinformation. We're the Big Tent Party when it comes to abortion. We actually have pro-choice Republican candidates. We have pro-life Republican candidates. The Democrats have pretty much purged any candidate or office holder that was pro-life out of their party. And if you don't believe me, talk to Dennis, I think Brzezinski, I think that was his name.
You got Lipinski, you've got Zalewski, you've got all the skis, but basically they've all been kicked out if they're not fully far left on abortion.
Right. But and talk about overplaying your hand. I mean, the Democrats, they've gone to from just no abortion, say in the last trimester, to late-term abortion. They used to support notifying parents of a minor abortion. No more. They repealed that just in the last couple of years since I've been chairman. They repealed that. They're all for taxpayer-funded abortions. So it just seems like it's abortion all the time for the Democrat Party. So they're the extremist party on it. We're the Big Tent Party on abortion, but we've got to do a better job messaging that position, and it hasn't helped. They've outspent us 10 and 20 to 1. So that's where resources come into play as well. That's why they've been able to get away with the misinformation on where the Republican Party is. I mean, so that is going to be an issue, and hopefully our Republican candidates are going to be better equipped to address the abortion issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know in your position, you can't take sides in primaries, and you don't. So we're not going to talk about the presidential election. I would just ask you this. How do we keep the races in Illinois from getting nationalized? Because what we've struggled with, and Democrats, especially under Madigan and afterwards, have really focused on nationalizing every election and talking about national issues rather than local issues. And that has hurt us in the past, and it may hurt us again in this upcoming election, depending on who we nominate for president. So how do we keep this race from being about whoever whoever it is that we nominate for president, and keep it about the fact that Democrats are ruining the state? How do we do that? Is it messaging, as you mentioned, or what do we do to make sure that the top of the ticket doesn't necessarily hurt our down ballot candidates?
Well, all politics are local, and the candidates have got to remember that over and over again. We're a very regional state too. I mean, we have a lot of fine people running for president right now, and some of those candidates will run better in certain parts of the state than others. I mean, some presidential candidates will run better in the suburbs. Some will run better in rural Illinois and downstate. And so, but the candidates are going to have to deal with that and regionalize and localize their election as much as they can. That's going to have to be their focus, and the state party will help when we can. But we are a statewide party, and a lot of this, will be regional. What plays in one part of the state isn't going to play necessarily in another part of the state, and so to a large extent, it's going to be up to the candidates and their local county parties and their local township parties.
Does that make it difficult for you?
What
just
we're
as
going
you
to try
said,
to do is help them to be stronger overall in generating the turnout they need to win, and helping them with election integrity issues.
Does that make it tougher for you guys? I mean, I know you've got a great team there. Shout out to Tommy Choi. You've got an awesome team, but you just mentioned something I don't think about a lot, which is it is a very large state. And you guys, when you do something as the party, you're doing it for the whole state. So to your point, some things might play in one region and not another. Does that make it challenging for you guys? Because this is one of the most diverse states in the country.
It certainly does. And I really haven't talked about election integrity most, but I said I did not inherit an election integrity committee. And we certainly have never had an election integrity director, because that was always done by the governor's campaign or some other statewide campaign. But we can't rely on that anymore. And also with the election season thing, election integrity, like GOTV, needs to be year round. So that's why we now have a full-time, for the first time ever, election integrity director who is year round. And in certain areas of the state, election integrity is a real serious issue. With some of the Democrat clerks out there, that they don't seem to pay a lot of attention to the election integrity statutes and guardrails and rules and all that. But to keep them honest, we need election judges, and we need more election judges and poll watchers, particularly in certain parts of the state. But in other parts of the state, we don't really have to worry about election integrity, because we have fair and honest elections like we always have. We have good, solid Republican county clerks. So that does make it more challenging. Is that it's the problem areas are they're in the big blue counties.
Yeah.
Really. So we have to focus on abnormally an excessively amount of our resources on those counties.
Those races this time around aren't just going to be Chicago and the suburbs. So you talk about those blue areas, Madison County, St. Clair County. We've got some huge races there. We're going to have some big races, it looks like, in Champaign to hold some seats and maybe pick up some seats. There's some big, and up in Rockford, you mentioned the 17th. So there's some big metropolitan areas that it looks like Republicans are getting to play in 2024. So as you said, issues like election integrity, it's not just a Chicago issue. People think it's just Chicago. There are regions throughout our state that are more urban that a lot of these challenges pop up in.
Right, and you just mentioned them. Champaign, Rockford, Metro East, but also Peoria and the Quad Cities are other areas where the local parties need to have strong election integrity committees, and we're here to help develop those strong election integrity committees. That's so very, very important. In fact, there were some, one of the great success stories of the last election people forget about is that Madison County elected for the first time ever in 70 years, a majority of Republican judges, because that was what they called nationally called it a plaintiff's paradise. There would be all kinds of plaintiffs lawsuits, national lawsuits that were brought to Madison County because it was so one-sided in favor of plaintiffs.
It was a judicial hellhole, according to one organization.
Absolutely. It's called a judicial hellhole. And St. Clair County is still a judicial hellhole, and so is Cook County, according to, I think it's the American Chamber of Commerce. But they caught in an election, in a judicial contest, they caught a Democrat committing voter fraud who pled guilty down there because they had a strong election integrity commission, and they had a great poll watcher and good Republican election judges. And that's why it really takes that to have honest and fair elections, particularly in those areas. We need good Republican election judges, which we're trying to recruit, good Republican poll watchers, and a good local election integrity commission, which will help with.
Awesome. Well, I know you got to go, so I know you are an excellent cheerleader for the party. I'd be doing myself and you a disservice if I didn't let you close with why should Republicans be optimistic going into 2024?
Well, on almost like I said, the Democrats are overplaying their hand, and they're destroying our country. And if it's now, if people aren't willing, Republicans and conservatives aren't willing to get off the sidelines now, I just don't know when they will be. I mean, this is a golden opportunity with the leftists, the socialists having taken over the Democrat Party, with an incumbent president who is infirm, who is gone woke himself, whose approval ratings are, I think, about the lowest I can remember ever for an incumbent president. If there was ever a time to have a great election, to be it. But we can't take it for granted. We can't just think like a lot of the talking heads were saying, oh, we're gonna have this big red wave, 2022, so relax and enjoy it, buy popcorn and watch the election returns. No, this is an all hands on deck time. It's an opportunity, but it's going to be a wasted opportunity if we don't get more Republican donors. And if you don't want to give to the state party, fine, give to candidates. Democrats, they give to both, and that's why and that probably helps overall more. But give to candidates, give to Republican causes, and there's lots of great Republican causes out there because it takes resources. And the Democrats, the party special interest, they're going to have plenty of money in Illinois. Pritzker bucks are going to provide plenty of money, and we can win even when we're outspent 2 and 3 to 1. But when they outspend us 10 and 20 to 1, that gets tough. So so help us get engaged, become part of the solution, not the problem.
I love it. A great place to stop. Illinois Republican Party Chairman Don Tracy, thank you so much. I hope you and your family have a very Merry Christmas.
You as well, Collin, and all the good Republicans and conservatives out there. Merry Christmas.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. I have with me State Representative Joe Sosnowski. Joe, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It's always good to be here with you just before Christmas coming up.
Yeah, and this is our special pre-Christmas episode. So we're recording this a week in advance, but we're going to be releasing this just before Christmas. So I guess I'll start with Merry Christmas. Glad to have you here. And let's jump right into political topics because I know we have limited time. We concluded our interview with state party leader Don Tracy. And with him, we talked a little bit about Pritzker. And I had a question for you more from the government side. You've been on the inside in the halls of government, and you've seen how maybe not the way Pritzker is portrayed publicly by the media and others, where they kind of gloss over the challenges. There have been a lot of challenges, like any administration, but a lot in this Pritzker administration that really haven't gotten press like they should. A good number of failures that, frankly, deserve more attention than they get. So my question to you is, what really stands out to you, and how do we start to hold Pritzker accountable for these things?
Well, I think it's number one, just key for us as Republicans to talk about a message and stick to that message, which I think it's sometimes difficult, especially on the policymaking side. It's really easy to go down the rabbit hole of wanting to get involved and talking about a million different things and the sophistication of bills. And as Republicans, we're introducing things to make positive changes, and we want to go by 10-point plans and stuff. And that's, you can't really relay that on the campaign trail and really point that out in the media. And quite frankly, I think some of that blame falls on us as Republicans, that the media just hasn't picked up on it. I mean, there's all types of things that they've pushed, that's really out of touch with mainstream Illinois residents, but also mainstream Americans. I mean, and you can get into social issues like parental consent. 75% of Illinois residents thought parental consent when it came to abortion made sense. Let's have parents involved in young girls' lives in important decisions. But then we can talk about big policy and dollars. We're spending $1 billion this year non-residents, people that don't have, they're not Illinois residents, right? We're going to give free healthcare, to the tune of $600-700 million. And then now Pritzker announced another $160 million to help towards migrant housing, services, shelter, relocation. I mean, who knows what that's going to include? I mean, that's $1 billion that's not going to help Illinois taxpayers.
And then to that, Joe, I had a follow-up question to you on that, because the numbers that government says they're going to spend on certain social programs are based on the reality of the numbers that they have at the moment. They don't tend to project things like, we're going to have migrants coming here, we're all going to need those services. So my question is, how much is this going to explode certain parts of the budget that we don't even know about today? I mean, you mentioned $1 billion in spending. It's going to be more than that. The spigot's just starting to open up.
Well, case in point, when they first decided to offer healthcare, there was some accountant somewhere, hopefully he's been fired, I don't know who that was, but it was estimated to be, I think, $10-15 million was going to be the cost. I mean, that was just 2-3 years ago, and now you're looking at $600 million plus. And so exactly to your point, you create this system or these options or these programs or benefit, I mean, whatever you want to call it, and it just keeps growing. And you don't, you could have an Indiana address and apply for benefits here and, I guess claim, non-resident status and get health care. It all depends, I guess, on the program, but I can tell you it's not tightly run right now. And so absolutely, these costs are exploding out of control to the point that, even the governor's folks have had to say, okay, we got to stop taking new members. We have to put a hold on it.
Yeah. Well, and so to this point, I think it's really good advice. Our viewers are right of center. So Republican elected officials, political people, grassroots, civic leaders, conservatives. So this is, advice for our team, really. And a lot of trainings that I do on comms, it's, hey, be interesting. I mean, the media at the end of the day is a for-profit entity. If you're interesting enough, you'll get coverage because they need the clicks to survive. They need the eyeballs to survive. So it sounds like that's a bit of the point you were making a little bit ago, which is if we want coverage, we're going to have a stronger message, be a bit more interesting, and earn that coverage. Is that something that you've been saying?
I think that's the case, and keep it simple and direct and consistent, and don't stop. And I think that's something. You look at the Madigan versus Rauner years. I mean, Madigan got up there and had a press conference every day, every week, whatever. He said the same thing over and over again for a year straight. That's a playbook where, it sounds repetitive, but in order to get that message through, we've got to come together and figure that out. And that's easier said than done. Sometimes I think, we've got candidates running in different parts of the state all over the place, maybe folks in the Chicago suburbs, versus downstate, differ a little bit. But we've got to be able to find that unifying message to really get across. And then you can, of course, go down, other pathways. But when it comes to the campaign trail and winning elections, we've got to keep pounding on some of these issues.
Well, speaking of messaging, I hate giving Pritzker and his team credit, but they are great at messaging. And one of the things they've done really well is make it seem like Illinois' economy and finances are better than ever. They've pushed this narrative, and the media's helped them along a bit. And while I applaud the positivity, I don't love the negativity that we often see when it comes to our own state, our home state. At the end of the day, the facts don't really back up what Pritzker has been saying, that, Illinois is better than ever. When you look at our comparison to other states, we're, the 5 worst unemployment states in the country. Our tax burden is the highest in the country. They just talked about how our credit rating keeps getting raised, but it's still the 2nd worst in the country. Our pension debt is among the worst. Our population decline is among the worst. There just are so many factors here that don't get talked about. And yet we're talking about how it's rosy. It's so great because we've seen tiny little improvements, but the rest of the country is seeing gigantic improvements. So we're actually falling even further behind in many cases.
Yep. And I beat this like a broken horse, I know, but, I always just point to population trend, right? And the Democrats and Pritzker's administration will argue, we've gained some here, et cetera. The bottom line is, at best, Illinois' population over the last decade is flat. We haven't grown at all. Best case scenario. Most would argue that it's decreased a little bit, but hey, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say it's flat. Well, if we grew at the same pace as Indiana or Wisconsin, we'd have 1 million more people living here in Illinois, and that's the problem.
Paying taxes and Yep.
paying taxes, growing the economy, creating jobs, creating, that economic engine.
And think about it. If you had 1 million more people who wanted to live here, what would that do to our home values? I mean, that's one of the hidden costs here of the stagnant recovery that we've had in Illinois, where you look at the rest of the country and how their home values have rebounded. And our home values have gone up only a little bit, frankly. And when you compare that to the added property tax burden, people don't want to pay that. So there's so many hidden things here where Illinois families, working families, are getting screwed by these bad policies and they don't even realize it.
Yeah, and that's where again, I want to talk positive too, but you got to be realistic positive. Okay, we've got problems, so here are ways we can fix it. How do we help working families? How do we grow the economy? And let's just start with the property tax question. So number one, we talked about wasteful spending earlier. Let's stop spending $1 billion on non-residents. Let's figure out how to put that back into the system so it brings down costs for our residents. And then let's address the property tax issue. We're the second highest tax state in the nation. It's driving people away, or at least it's not allowing us to grow, however you want to phrase it. And we've got to start doing something about that. So, let's help seniors by, here's a crazy idea. Let's just freeze their property tax and say, hey, once you reach a certain age, you've maxed out on what you have to pay for property tax, to give an incentive, number one, for them to stay, but number two, to hopefully help, aging Americans stay in their home. It's better than, and less costly than them having to go to a facility. And then how do we help working families? Well, let's look to limit the property tax increase, and put a cap on it of 2-3% or something like that. And then that would put some downward pressure on local municipalities and counties and local governments to limit their spending increases also. And then all the unfunded mandates and bureaucratic costs that we put on local governments. We need to start addressing those things. Those are real ways to bring down costs for average families.
Well, and you talk about unfunded mandates. A lot of these school districts, even the superintendents, the school boards, whether they lean left or lean right, they all agree on that point, that if Springfield would just stop burying them in these unfunded mandates, it would help, because so much of their budget goes towards these things that Springfield says you must do X, but figure out how to pay for it on your own. And there's so many of these that it really does constrict the budgets of that, plus the lack of pension reform really does constrict these school districts' budgets. And so they're a big chunk of the property taxes, and people always blame them. And I understand some of that maybe is earned especially for some districts, but most of it is they're having to keep up with these exploding pension costs and these unfunded mandates, and then say, where can we cut in our budget? You tell us where to cut.
Yeah. A recent example, just a couple of years ago, it got covered up, I think, by the Safety Act and all the change in speaker and all of that, but there was something put into the budget that's going to take effect in a couple of years that requires all students to have 2 years of foreign language versus 1 year. And it's going to be a mandate on school districts. Number one, we have a teacher shortage. Number two, we definitely don't have enough foreign language teachers to meet that demand. And that was basically put in, as a pet project. Somebody thought it was important that, had more, foreign language for students, but it also kills trade schools, those students who are looking to, go on and maybe take more classes in math and science at a community college, and so it basically it limits school or student potential and opportunity, and then raises costs for school districts. And again, they'll say, well, maybe it only costs $150 million to school districts. Well, if we could start finding every $100 or $200 million, and you find a couple of those areas a year and start saving that money, all of a sudden it becomes real money.
Well, and what we've seen in our polling is the idea, the message of protect local control of our schools plays on both sides of the aisle, right? It's hey, 2 years or 4 years of foreign language may make sense in your district, and maybe it doesn't make sense in this other district. Let's let the districts who know their people and know what jobs are needed in their community identify the skills, get that portrait of a graduate that works for their specific district, versus someone down in Springfield saying every school district in the whole state has to do this because I woke up this morning with a brilliant idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Local flexibility and letting students and parents kind of drive their educational goals. That's the where it should be at.
Yeah. I want to get into some specific districts, but briefly before I do, I just want to ask you philosophically, as we've watched in this state specifically over the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 6 years, how far left the Democratic Party has moved. Polling has shown that this is a working class, moderate state, and the Democrat really has moved to the far left, the extreme left, and it's been fast. It's been precipitous how fast they've moved so far left. Really, are you seeing that down in Springfield? And what does that mean for Republicans' chances as Democrats get even further out of the mainstream?
Oh, 100%. And, just some of the issues we mentioned earlier, I mean, not to mention things like school choice, them eliminating, the Invest in Kids program. I mean, this is something that benefits, African-American Hispanic families in the tune of about 60+%. And it's something that polls in the 70% range. Everybody, wants that except for teachers unions, which I understand that, but they are so far left on everything. And again, that comes down to us as Republican candidates pointing these issues out on a regular basis and saying, hey, listen, we need moderation. They've gone so far this direction. But yeah, kind of that moderate Dem is a thing of the past, the Mike Zalewski's, of the world that, might have been a little more moderate, but from a Chicago-based district, they're just getting. And
you even saw your colleague Lindsay Ednock even said, like, there's no place in my party for people like me, so he's retiring, and he was one of the last moderates on the Democratic side.
Yeah, and they're getting kind of picked off, and then the ones that are coming up, I don't know what the exact number is. I've heard people joke about the city council in Chicago being, 10 to 15 members are socialist. Well, some of these policies that are being discussed in Springfield that are pushed, I wouldn't, put it past them that, that type of mentality and some of these far left policies are really starting to bleed through. And we've seen it. I just don't think the average family or average person maybe in Illinois necessarily believes it. You really got to kind of say, hey, no, look, you won't believe that this was passed. And then they're like, wait a minute, are you kidding me? So some of it's just now, I think, coming to light, and people are realizing it a little bit more. But again, it gets back to the media kind of giving up a pass. We've maybe on the Republican side been a little bit disorganized, between messaging, and we just got to do a better job across the board.
Yeah, I mean, shining a spotlight. I've often thought that if we just created a pipeline where every time Democrats did something crazy, we could just hit a button and it sends out, I don't know, ads or text messages or emails or something to Illinois voters, and just bury them year after year with at least once a week they're doing or saying something ridiculously crazy. Yeah. And if voters were aware of that, I think it would change things electorally significantly in this state.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've been hitting that button a lot, that's for sure.
Well, I know. Listen, I'll give you guys credit. House Republicans, especially over the last year, on our podcast, we've given you guys a lot of credit for shining the spotlight, really pushing hard on the press. And the Senate Republicans, same deal, putting a solid press operation together and pushing information out. Clearly, there's an effort here. It takes time, so we're going to need to keep building on it over time. But kudos where they're earned. Efforts are certainly being put in here.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And and then the other part of it is, just good hard work. We gotta be working our butt off on the campaign trail. You can't take anything for granted, whether it's a safe district, a moderately safe district, or a swing district. You got to have candidates that are willing to work, and they're willing to work hard and spend a lot of time doing it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, great segue. It's like you're a pro at this. So I want to talk about some of those districts, and we don't have to get into too many specifics, though you're welcome to if you'd like. But really, I broke this down into 3 discussion points. First being, there are some incumbent House Republicans that are being challenged, some being challenged from the right, some from the left. But in each case, there's really 3 big ones that are happening more in Southern Illinois. I'm just curious, does this put you guys in a bad spot as the party because your colleagues are being challenged? Does it create problems, or is this something you guys are used to and you know how to deal with?
Well, I think these things come up all the time. I think it should be our goal, whether it's in the House or the Senate. We want to do the best we can to reduce any challenges to incumbents, and let's try to put our resources towards those general election results. We'll see where our side of the aisle spends money and time and resources, but especially in heavy Republican districts where no matter what, we're going to have more than likely a good Republican candidate. I'm not a big advocate of spending a lot of dollars in those races. If the candidates themselves, go in, and they're going to spend big, well, God bless them. But, we shouldn't be putting a lot of our time and focus and effort. We had a couple races last cycle where we spent a lot of money defending a primary election against an incumbent who I don't want to call out any names, but may have taken some votes that have been, maybe a little borderline that kind of put a target on the back. And, all of a sudden we're spending millions to defend a seat. That's just money taken out of our ability to beat Democrats. And that's tough to rationalize. And so, yes.
Well, and to your point, we're looking at, we've been talking a lot about 107, 110, 116, and those are all basically our 50 districts. So no matter who we nominate, even if they're controversial or they have a problem, they're still going to win by at least 20 or 30. So your point's valid. These are Republican districts no matter what. Yeah,
absolutely. So, so it'll be interesting, how those pan out. And of course, we've got election challenge or petition challenges and things. I can't remember all the different ones that are out there, but we'll see how those all kind of percolate through the system too, and maybe some of these won't be as contested as we think right now.
That's a fair point. Okay, looking at 2024, there are Democrats have said there's a number of districts they're coming after, but there's really 6 that are more possible that they're going to be coming after that they might have a chance of winning. Anywhere from Schmidt being maybe the most vulnerable in 114. You've got 104, Marin's old seat, which is now an open contest. 47, Amy Grant. 48, Jennifer Sanalitro. 79, which is that district we talked about, is Haas. And she's really strong. 52, McLaughlin. Those are really the 6 I've heard the most. What are your thoughts on, holding on to those seats? What do we need to do to hold on to those seats? Anyone you obviously won't say you're nervous about, but, make sure we got to do some extra work.
Well, I think the goal is you'd be nervous about all of them. That's how I would approach it. And I don't say that, in jest, but, again, not to pick on anybody, but, McLaughlin's race, McLaughlin's great, super candidate, very personable, well-liked, but he's got a candidate who ran last time in the Senate race and did pretty well. So we got to, be working our butts off. And so, what I would tell Marty as a candidate is like, hey, listen, there's got to be a lot of hours dedicated, especially now, as an incumbent, as a current sitting member, there's a lot of opportunities, to use what you're doing every day in your office with great constituent outreach and, those types of things. But, also, after Christmas time here, hey, you got to put together a ground organization, and when you don't really need to spend, a lot of money right now, and maybe we don't have a lot of resources up front, those hours spent, either, with just good constituent service, but then also, just getting out there in the neighborhoods, knocking on doors, getting to community events, that's all over months and months and months, that all builds up, obviously. And we've got to be doing that. Somebody told me a story once, and again, I don't know how much of it is true, but, you take the old Madigan playbook, and he'd have a certain set number of hours that candidates need to knock on doors. Now, he was ready to bring in resources, right? But he'd have hours that they had to log, and, that included getting petition signatures, things like that. Well, we really need that same type of playbook. We've got to have, those hours logged, because every 100 voters that I meet individually, that just extrapolates into electoral success later on. Now, you're not going to be able to meet everybody in your district, but boy, you spend a couple hundred hours or 500 hours, whatever it ends up being, it makes a big difference.
Well, and I think you're kind of relying on those incumbents. Of the names I mentioned, Grant, Sanalitro, Haas, McLaughlin, those are the 4 less likely to flip, but they are being targeted by Democrats this time around, and they're incumbents. And so you're sort of saying, hey, guys, we really, really need you guys to run strong campaigns, go talk to voters, raise money, because we've got 114 and 104, where 114's a Dem-leaning district that Schmidt won. So that's going to be a harder one to hold on to. 104 is an open seat that's pretty close to even. It's going to be a harder seat to hold. We kind of need the other 4 to really kick some butt so that what resources you do spend on defense can go into those other 2 districts, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're looking at a formula there, and that's definitely where it's got to be. And and I don't, the Dems, we look at fundraising. You can just look on the State Board of Elections on the D2 and the D1s that are filed, and there's massive amounts of money already pouring in to their campaign efforts. So, they can just say, well, hey, we're going to open up the book and we're going to play in this area. And so that's why we got to be especially aggressive on defense. So, what's the old adage? The best defense is a strong offense. And, we've got to get out there and do it early.
Well, speaking of offense, there's really 7 great pickup opportunities for Republicans in the Illinois House. Most of our best pickup opportunities are in your caucus in the House. So that's really where a lot of the focus is going to be. I'll go through them briefly, but 45, which is Reboletti's our candidate, 51, Tasi Ufadike, 66, Lori Parman, 76, there's a primary between Bishop and Loughran, so we don't know who our candidate is going to be there yet. 91 with Anderson, 97 with Gabby Shanahan, 81 with Aaron Porter. You've got 7 districts that to varying degrees are potentially in play. We could gain some ground this time around. So let's talk about going on offense. What are your thoughts on these, or maybe even some other district where you see us actually making some gains and picking up some seats?
Yeah, and again, not to get in any one specific candidate, but I think it again comes down to, all right, who's our person, and are they working their butts off? And then are they pointing out all of the problems with the Democrat policies that we kind of talked about earlier? And are they doing a good job of it? And then, number one, we got to see that work ethic, play out and be strong, over the next 4 months or so. And then you start to, figure out where you invest those dollars to back them up and where are our best opportunities. But it's going to be the same for all of them. There is no magic formula. If a candidate's just not working as hard as they should, it's going to play out, in polling and, and what people are seeing, and what they're feeling in the district, and if they're building momentum or not.
Well, I think that's key to our watchers. We got to say, hey, these are key districts. And unlike the Democrat strategy is going to be this: toss some money in every district, pull it come next summer or next fall, and then let's just see what happened and see where we can play. Republicans don't have that kind of money. So Republicans will also do their polling next summer and August and September and decide where to put their limited funds to get some wins. And so it's on us, the grassroots of the party, to get out there. And I know, Joe, you do this. You go, support your fellow Republican candidates, knock on doors, do fundraising for them. We all got to do that, because we can't just sit back and expect the dollars are going to flow. We got to put these districts, these candidates that I mentioned, by next August, we got to put them in play so they can win. But if we just sit back and expect that it's going to happen, we're not going to have enough money to go in these districts and win them in 2 or 3 months. It's going to be the hard work between now and August that allows us to have a chance at winning them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We just can't rely on a bunch of money spent on mailers in the last 4 weeks, because frankly, the last 4 weeks is, you're almost getting too late. And the other thing that we didn't talk about yet, tied to all of this, is the early vote. I'm not a big fan of mail-in voting or, those types of things. But hey, early voting's available, mail-in voting's available. We need to just embrace it and say, what are we going to do to get our low propensity Republican voters out there voting? And we got to start focusing on them early. I'm going to be doing the same thing. My district's not even, really, in much doubt, hopefully. But, we've all got to be doing that to drive up voter turnout, across the board. And,
but I think to your point,
especially in these districts.
Each of these districts play off each other, right? I mean, you've got state Senate districts that you're coupled with. You've got a congressional district that if you're able to raise your vote total, it's going to help those candidates. And then in 2 years, we got to, knock out whoever the Democrats put up for governor if it's not Pritzker. So it has value, to your point, even if your district is a safe district.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about Senate races, and I'm not sure where the overlap are right now, but absolutely partnering with those Senate candidates to get a 2-for-1 and getting twice the work done. That type of cooperation is going to be important in this election also. But yeah, we got to take advantage of all of our opportunities that we do have. Knowing that we're not going to have the money that they have, but a lot of good hard work will go a long way.
Absolutely. Well, and looking at the quality of candidates this time around, again, kudos where it's earned. You guys in the House have done a great job of recruitment. You've got some high quality candidates here. So now it's really on all of us, right? It's going to be a team effort to overcome those giant piles of cash that the left has. But the good news is we didn't have time to get into issues, but you look at the issues, the voters are with us more than they're with the other side on most of the top issues. So we have the advantages for us. The top of the ticket might hurt us a little bit. Their mountain of cash might hurt us a bit, but it's not like we're, going completely upstream here. There are advantages we have, but we're going to have to go out there and work. We don't have patronage jobs on our side. We can't rely on just paying people to go out there. We got to go bust our butts. Otherwise, we're going to have another wasted opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
All right, well, let's close with this. I know we got to get going here. We're out of time, but I just want to ask you as we close out, why should Illinois Republicans, Illinois conservatives be optimistic for the year ahead for 2024? As we close out 2023, people are bombarded with, it's going to be all about abortion and Pritzker's money and Republicans are screwed, and that pessimism doesn't get somebody off the couch to go work. And we got to get out there if we're going to win these elections. So what are the things you'd point to that is, hey, this is a motivating factor. It's worth it. We can win. Go do the work.
Yeah, well, we can, and and that should be exactly what you kind of mentioned. They're going to say, "Oh, it's all about abortion," and voters are smarter than that. And us as Republicans and Republican candidates and Republican voters and working families, we're smarter than that too. And we've got to say, hey, enough of that nonsense. We have a lot of problems in this state, but it can be a great state. We've got a lot of great advantages. We're center of America, transportation. We've got Chicago is a big city that, yes, it's got its problems, but that can be fixed too. But we got to be involved in order to fix the problem. And we got to get those moderate voters, moderate Democrat voters, like we talked earlier, out there together. And, if we talk about the crazy far left fringe and these radical issues, I mean, that's enough to drive a lot of people away from their party and say, all right, you know what, let's go back. The pendulum needs to swing. And so again, I think it's just, if we're strong about it, we're diligent about the messaging, I'm optimistic that, that messaging can shine through and people will listen to it, and they'll come out and say, all right, you know what, yeah, we need a little bit more balance in Springfield, and that makes some sense.
Well, and you've been in the forefront of that just in your region. You look at like the Rockford area, the south suburbs, the Metro East, and some other areas where they're working class households. I see this in the Rockford region a lot, and you lead on that, where it's kitchen table issues. They don't care about all this other stuff. They care about how's this going to impact my family. The more that Republicans focus on working families and the struggles and the challenges of working families, we tend to have success. And I think you've proven that in your elections and in that Rockford area. And so more we have people speaking out like you in the party who point to policies that really work with working families, I think that's really what's going to lead the turnaround in a state like Illinois that's very working class.
Yep, I agree. That's absolutely the case, and it's a bipartisan issue. People want to have great school districts. They want to be able to send their kids to good colleges, see them have good success in life, and have futures that they determine on their own. And those are the focus areas. Yeah, a lot of that other stuff, that noise, the far left issues, people aren't talking about that every day. It's not affecting them. So we need to point that out and, point that they're out of touch. And, that's how we hopefully can refocus people towards our goals.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Joe, Representative Joe Sosnowski, for taking the time. To our watchers, thank you for sticking with us. This was our special holiday episode, our Christmas episode of the Smoke-Filled Room. We'll be back next week in your inboxes next Friday with another episode. Thanks for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next week.